everybody, this is John for MTG Nexus coming at you with another Pioneer Quick Hits. As a friendly reminder, this is a video much like the old SCG series where we do a quick deck tech and a short match to kind of show how the deck plays out a little bit. As a friendly reminder, if you like Modern, Pioneer, and a little bit of Legacy content, please consider subscribing to the channel, as we aim to be the most informative red-based channel for Modern on YouTube. So, this is a Simic Wilderness Reclamation kind of ramp, kind of combo-ish deck. It's really kind of hard to explain. It is based around the power of Wilderness Reclamation, and this particular list is by Decro, D-E-E-C-R-O, but I believe the origination of the list comes from AspiringSpike, if you're familiar with his streams. This deck is trying to set up basically Sublime Epiphany, which is a very powerful 6-mana spell. Basically says counter target spell, counter target activated or triggered ability, counter target non-land permanent, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, and target player draws a card. So basically it's trying to Torrential Gearhulk, Sublime Epiphany, copy Torrential Gearhulk, and kind of go off from there. You also have the ability to win with Uro, so you have a ton of accruing damage or advantage that way. You also have things like Dig Through Time, which is a little bit fighting with Uro in this deck, and then beyond that you're trying to play kind of a tempo game with things like Censor, Neutralize, and Sinister Sabotage, as well as Ether Spouts to keep you alive. You have Shark Typhoon as an alternative win con, either by making a large shark or by playing as an enchantment and then making large sharks after that. In order to keep you alive, you have 3 copies of Blast Zone against some of the aggressive decks, and then you're also utilizing things like Castle Vantress to scry through your deck and make sure you're continuing to hit gas. But the centerpiece of the deck is definitely Wilderness Reclamation in the main deck. Sideboard is 4 copies of Ether Gust for any type of red or green decks. Pretty good place to be, especially against Niv-Mizzet decks and aggressive decks. 3 copies of Mystical Dispute and 1 Jace's Defeat. This is pretty good against Spirits. Jauti Offshoot, pretty good for any type of aggressive decks. Nightpack Ambusher when you need some more aggressive threats. And then Elder Gargoth just when you need a big dumb idiot that has special abilities. For those of you that don't know Elder Gargoth, it's a 5-mana 6/6 that whenever it attacks or blocks, you get to either choose to create a 3/3 beast, gain a life, or draw a card. Very powerful card, but does have the downside of no enters the battlefield abilities. So, thought this deck was interesting. I think the final deck tech for the week was between this and Spirits. And I think I'm going to cover Spirits at some time next week, as it is a deck people need to be aware of in the Pioneer format. But this is definitely the deck that was the most interesting to me of the decks that have started to pop up in the post-Pioneer ban era. Here for the match. Unfortunately, we're on the draw, but I think overall a hand with Censor and a bunch of ops seems pretty decent. Temple of Mystery to help us scry towards other lands. So, okay. Not quite sure what's going on there. Just some type of Gruul deck. Dig Through Time. I think that's the kind of card I'm interested in a hand. Grabbed Forest and Island. Shotgun Breeding Pool. Get the double opt or sense or something potentially. So opponent runs face first into a Censor, which I'm happy about. The guys look like they're going to be pretty good in this matchup. Reclamation's a pretty good one to hit. Actually, I suppose we could just scry here. Looking for our 6th land drop. Spiral to the bottom, Sabotage to the top. Go ahead and do this. I want to hit land drop. Response to the trigger. We're going to go ahead and cast dig here. Deer Hulk and neutralize any order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they're getting close to casting Ulamog. Should be my guess is their payoff. Go 4/4 shark. Would have loved to have found the Sublime Epiphany. Trigger. Kozilek's Return? Sure. Reclamation is nice, but it's not really what we're looking for here. So I get the feeling we want to counter this. Really, we just want to end this game. Another large shark. All right. So we got to be aware of things like Ugin and such. Ugin and Ulamog. As far as cards that aren't great, the blue concerns me a little bit, like they could have counter spells. I think we just bring in the Ether Gusts. Could bring in the Night Pack Ambushers, potentially. Bring out the Ether Spouts and maybe 2 copies of Censor? Question mark. Especially on the draw. Not sure if we're supposed to bring in the Night Pack Ambushers in this kind of a matchup or not. I think our opponent somewhat has inevitability if they find their payoffs. Like, it feels like they are an Uro and it's kind of obviously a mulligan. This hand, likewise, is kind of awkward. I think I keep it bottom the Gear Hulk. I need to draw a land. Like that. Hold up Ether Gust, I suppose. What can they play on 3 that we would care about here? This is how we lose the game. The Cultivate, yep. Could bluff having Ether Gust here, but instead we're just going to basically die to whatever they have. Yep, yes even with that, we're gonna have a hard time fighting through the elementals and such. So the blue is probably for Uro at a minimum. I don't know if they're playing counter spells or not. Yeah, this hand seems pretty good. Fourth land. With all the redraws we have, I think I'm going to go ahead and bottom that. Turn 1, Arboreal Grazer. Yep. Pass turn. Glad we bottomed the land. Did you keep a 2-lander? Oh no. If they have Mystical Dispute, it's kind of whatever here. Yeah. hold up Ether Gust, which isn't necessarily the best. See if our opponent is still here or not. But so our opponent was on Teamer ramp of some kind. Apparently they're not still here. So kind of got a good idea of what this deck's trying to do. It's trying to ramp, get out ahead, interact with our opponent a little bit, and then just kind of do the thing. You know, obviously, you know, I really kind of like this setup, honestly. You know, a lot of people are not a huge fan of Wilderness Reclamation because of all the damage it's done in Standard and Modern, or Standard and Historic, but I do think in this format there's a few more tools to handle it. This deck's obviously very, very fun and very powerful once it gets rolling. I'm sure against the slower mid-range format it's probably pretty good. Against a more aggressive format it's probably a little bit weaker, although you do have Uros and Sharks to keep you alive, and then, you know, in the post Cyborg games you're like Jotty Offshoot, Nightback Ambusher, and Ether Gust keeps you alive against the red decks. So I can see this deck being a lot of fun, and if this is your kind of play style, I would suggest you try it out. It seemed like pretty good, and may not be completely done being refined yet, so definitely a deck to check out. And as always, this has been John for MTG Nexus. Give me a comment down below about whether you like this kind of series and like me finding these kind of decks that might impact the format in some way, or are already a large part of the format and you just kind of need to know what these decks are capable of. So this has been John for MTG Nexus.